Hi, I'm Renee Main and welcome to the Hedonistic Way Online Summit. We are having unadulterated pillow talk with global change makers who are disrupting the status quo in life and in business. They are living stereo untypical success. Today I am in bed with the beautiful Dr. Ricci-Jane Adams. She is the author of Spiritually Fierce. She is the founder and the creator of the Institute for Intuitive Intelligence. We have her here today because what I really wanted to do was discuss all things spirituality in business, and she gets me at fierce. I'm even wearing my tuxedo today because I wanted to be fierce for you.
Oh yeah, you look divine. You look spiritually fierce for sure. Yeah.
Something that I love about Ricci-Jane though is she's got this beautifully elegant approach to the way she serves, and everything, this movement that she's creating, it almost looks effortless, and I'm sure it's absolutely not effortless, but that's something that I really wanted to delve into today with Ricci-Jane, because with everything being so noisy and you kind of feel like you're constantly having to pimp everything out and you have to be across everything all at once, I feel like this beautiful soul does it so well, in a way that she is a soul shaker, and I love that. And it's like the eagle, you know, she flies wide and with purpose, and she knows exactly when to, I want to say pounce, but it's much more elegantly than that. But we'll get started. Welcome.
Oh my God, you have to hang out in my bed all the time and say those amazing things. I'm like, oh my God. I sound so great.
Well, you are, hence the reason why you're here. Well, I'm here in your bed.
Thank you for coming into my bedroom.
It's a comfy bed.
I got
I'm
the
liking
velvety
these.
Cushions.
They're good. They're really comfortable.
Yeah.
Before we get started, I want to know what your nickname is.
I just had an immediate flashback to what my sister calls me, which is Dick, because Ricky is Richard. But I don't think I've ever had one. Ricky is kind of the nickname because Ricci-Jane is my full name. So Ricky comes from my granddad, who was Richard, who was called Ricky, and then my nana kind of marched into the hospital when I was born and said, you have to add something girly to the end of it, and hence I became Ricci-Jane. So Ricky kind of is my nickname,
Ricky's
I guess.
your nickname.
Unless you're my sister and you can call me Dick. But otherwise,
I like Dick. I've got friends and we call each other Dick all the time.
Well, there you go. You can make me fall in love with him. And I sign all my emails RJ, but you know, very few people call me that. I think if I was in America, I'd be like RJ.
Yeah.
It's kind of more of a
It is absolutely. Something. What was I was going to say? Oh, we were playing backyard cricket a couple of weeks ago, right? And my daughter was playing. She was batting, and then I think my partner must have got her out or something like that. She turned around. She's 11, and she says, "You are such a Richard head."
I love that self-restraint. Because my 11-year-old wouldn't have used Richard. Yep. You're such a Richard head.
It made me laugh. So I was there on my beanbag, just like,
I love it.
Hilarious.
While they were playing backyard cricket.
Yeah.
I love it.
Beautiful. Tell us what's on your bedside table, please.
Oh, okay. So this is A Course in Miracles, which is, and that is genuinely on my bedside table. I didn't just put it there for a nice prop. So I'm a student of A Course in Miracles, and if you're familiar with it, you'll know that's a lifelong commitment. So even though the lessons are 365 days, one for each day of the year. The text, I've been reading since 2014 and I'm about halfway through. And that's, you know, that's a nightly ritual, is to come into bed, cup of tea and read a lesson. Read some of the text and then, drift off to sleep. So my glasses are also there.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And some flowers.
Yes. They are temporarily in my bedroom. because my husband is completely allergic. So flowers, like seriously, as soon as he walks out the door, I'm lighting the incense, I'm buying the flowers, but they all normally have to be in my workroom because he will sneeze a lot. So, but for you, because like I'm bringing them out of the workroom, they're coming into the bedroom. Yes.
That would be a horrible thing to be allergic to.
So hard.
Oh.
It's weird. Well, you know, it's probably hard for him, but it's harder for me because I am obsessed with flowers. So yeah, so I've now gone towards indoor plants. I just have way too many indoor plants now as a way to compensate.
Yeah, but you can get some beautiful ones now too. So which is nice. What is the third question? What is turning you on at the moment?
There's so many layers to that question, isn't there? There's so many ways you can answer that. Well, you know, what always is my primary, like what is a full body fuck yes for me is always my pursuit of the soul. And I just spent this weekend working with some of my third level priestesses in Melbourne and watching women recognize that they are God, that they, and you know, there's lots of words we can substitute if God's not comfortable, but the idea that, just this life, this path, and it is, you know, I had to make my peace with the fact several years ago that my primary relationship is with God. And so what turns me on always first is that, and then I have to also remember that that I am a wife and there are other parts of my life, and turning up to that sometimes, that's the harder part, you know, whereas often people say, my devotional practices are really hard to integrate into my life, and I'm like, oh yeah, fuck, remembering I'm human is actually the hard part. Am I allowed to say?
Yeah, okay, absolutely.
All right, I figured I would be allowed to swear, not say Richard head.
No.
Yeah. So I guess that's kind of, it sounds maybe like I'm avoiding saying anything kind of sexy or dirty, but actually like the bliss that comes from the work, we call them heartgasms. Like you get the heartgasm. At the moment we're doing the heart coherence challenge in my group, and it's like there is a level of that full body orgasmic kind of sensation of living in present time, because that's really what happens, where all of the history and all of the fear of the future falls away, and you do, you know, it happens to me every time I get on the yoga mat as well. I get that yogasm kind of feeling. It's just, it is a life on purpose, and I think that's what always excites me and turns me on the most.
Absolutely. Something that you said just before that I wanted to touch on was that recognizing that you are God. Yeah. And got your kid who's being a little turd in the corner, or your partner who whatever, or business if you don't get, you know, the outcome that you want, or whatever that is. So tell us about that.
Yeah. I mean, that is what I call spiritual self-esteem. Yeah. And that's where you are able to create a greater state of being by reminding yourself of who and what you truly are, regardless of external circumstances. Yeah. To use Caroline Mace's term, she talks about the mystic without walls. Yes. That we don't get the privilege these days of being in cloisters or up in the mountain, you know, or on retreat in Bali every week. Yes. We are in the world. Yes. And that is the contemporary mystic. And the contemporary mystic is here to change the paradigm that says spirituality is special and it's privileged, and it can only happen when all the conditions are perfect. Yes. And actually, I am service. That idea that I'm always ready to serve is, it doesn't matter what the circumstances of my life are. Yes. If I am turned on to that path, then there are no special conditions. Absolutely. I am ready to put that path prior or ahead of my own story of lack. Yes. Yeah. And it's, you know, it does require that spiritual self-esteem is to remember that you are God, or that you are the infinite, or that you are unlimited, or whatever word you want to substitute. I just use God because I'm bored of not using it, really. Trying to not use it is really hard. Yeah, and that's it. I can totally relate to that. And something that I guess then that relates back to A Course in Miracles is that it's an everyday practice. Every day. And it's no matter what's happening outside here, it's what's happening within. Yeah. And something that actually one of the ladies that I was in bed with last week
we were talking about embodying God,
Yeah.
you know, and that in spirituality, we're often seeking that outside of us. You know, God is outside of us, spirit, source, the divine, it's all outside of us. But the true change is then when you recognise that's within.
Yeah.
So can you then expand on that element? Where have you gone from seeking, because like you're a seeker very much of spirituality and the combination of science and spirituality. So then how then can you be an infinite seeker while embodying God?
Oh, that's a good question. I think you covered like so much there. Like we could spend a few days in bed together just dealing with looking at all of that. You know, there's a measure that I use, and it's so simple that most people will reject it, but it's like, is your spiritual seeking making you happier? Because otherwise it becomes actually just a spiritual kind of narcissism, or, you know, and I talk about this in the book, Spiritually Fierce, is that for so long, my spiritual practices were used as a weapon against myself, where I would beat myself up for my humanity.
Yeah.
Where I would use my spiritual practices as a measure of how much I wasn't meditating, or how much I wasn't forgiving, and how much I was ungodly, and how much I had chosen to get drunk that night instead of, like, and separating that's spiritual and that's not spiritual.
Yes.
And when we embody God, everything is spiritual. Everything is God, and everything is always working for me.
Yeah, that's right.
So that is the shift in perception. It's changing your mind about what you are, which is what we also learn from A Course in Miracles. That's the greatest power we have, is to change our mind about who we are.
Yeah.
And when we go from the paradigm of I'm spiritual on Sundays, or I get up early in the morning and I do my spiritual practices, and if I don't do that, I'm not a good spiritual person, and I beat myself up if I miss my 5 a.m. yoga, or my, you know, when we start recognizing that actually the most spiritual practice there is forgiveness. And that's, you know, we keep talking about A Course in Miracles, but that's it. It's like, forgive what's right in front of you. That is the most spiritual practice. And the beauty of that, of course, is that forgiveness releases you from fear, and that means that everything becomes bliss. And that to me is like, okay, you know, I spoke to this amazing woman called Courtney Olson recently. I don't know, she's this amazing kind of bodybuilder who inspires lots of women with her brand Girl Army. And it's like girl, GRRL, like really fierce woman. But she used the term, which I loved, she was too woke. And it was this idea, she's American, so they've got this great use of language. It was this idea that she had just consumed so much conspiracy theory and so much kind of spiritual wankery and so much knowledge that she was too awake to the possibility that maybe none of this is real, maybe there are aliens, maybe we live in a holographic projection, maybe there's reptiles, overlords who are running the country, and none of that was improving her life.
No, exactly.
It was just more spiritual seeking. Like, you can go into someone's house and they have all the crystals and they're the meanest person you've ever met.
That's right, they can still be a wanker.
Of the highest order, because then you're a spiritual wanker, which means you're righteous and self-important.
Yeah, exactly.
So the idea of embodying God is humility, and it's grace, but it's also the recognition that literally you know, the greatest spiritual teachers of our time, you may never know their name. You may never know who they are, because they would never identify themselves. There's no need for them to be doing anything different in the world. They could be the shopkeeper or the bank teller, you know. The reason my path of service is what I do is because it's my most fun. I can't think of a better way. And I know that I am a vibrational match for it because it keeps working. And people keep finding me. And they're like, I don't know how I found you, but I did. And it's like, I know how you found me. It's like, we already agreed. All of this is preordained. And that's how you get out of that belief or fear that, oh my God, I have to like hustle for this life. You know, you will work your ass off. I work my ass off.
Absolutely.
But I'm not in a hustle state like I have to convince anybody of anything.
No, like I just want to vomit whenever I hear that. It's like, oh, that sounds like I want to have a shower. Like it's just like, oh, it's horrible. So what if someone loves what they do? But they aren't getting the outcome.
Yes. So this is such a good question, because this is where we're moving out of. So there's this 3 tiers of intuition. So we've got survival intuition, which is where, you know, people like you and I completely get that. That's what we call gut instinct.
Yes.
I suddenly know that my child's not safe, or I should leave that building, or I shouldn't get into that car, or it's just gut survival. It's life protecting life, as Caroline Mace tells us.
Yeah.
At a cultural level, just as an aside, we are still incredibly suspicious of that. Most people still think of gut instinct as some kind of higher spiritual power. It's not. It's actually just your basic primary, making sure that no one,
it's
you know, primal.
Yeah.
Perfect word to describe it. Then we have creative intuition. And this is where most people who identify as spiritual entrepreneurs are coming from. This is where you're making your vision boards, and you've got this vision of how you want 3D reality to look, and you're starting to awaken to your spiritual practices, and you're starting to see how things like the law of vibration means that if you hold a better, higher vibration, you're going to attract things like abundance and clients, and you might be starting to see your power for the first time, your true power, but you still have an agenda. You're turning up to God with an agenda. If it doesn't look like my vision board, and if it doesn't have this many people in it, and if I don't have this much money in the bank, then God somehow is broken, and you know, then we go into that whole punitive, I have to meditate more, I have to, you know, or we go into I'm the victim, and it's like everything's fucked, and I turned up for God, and what did God do for me? That kind of thing. So that's sort of at the creative level of intuition. We're getting good downloads, we're getting good hits and good connection, but we are still doing that with an expectation that we're going to get something back. That's kind of the Christian model. I'll do my penance, and then and God will forgive me, and then I can go back and be a bad person again. Like, you know, it's this idea that someone's keeping a scorecard. When we move into visionary intuition, this is where we just say, use me. My life is yours. Let me be your hands and feet in the world. Let me be a living, breathing expression of you. And we have to put down our own personal agenda. Now, A Course in Miracles again tells us that what God wants for us is our own happiness. So we should never be afraid that what God will want for us is give up all our money, walk away from our children, give up our house, you know, be broke and destitute. That's the ego. The ego is trying to say, if you follow God, you're going to have nothing. Do you remember that lifetime? Go back into the subconscious where you had to give up everything for God. And so we activate that kind of pain body through all of those lifetimes where being on the path to God meant sacrifice. All man-made religion, not actually what God ever wanted. But we're terrified of handing ourselves over and saying, use me. Yet, if we did do that, if we 100% surrendered to that, we would stop being imitators. We would stop being spiritual entrepreneurs like everybody else is. We would find our unique voice and our unique offer, and we would speak it so authentically that no one would ever doubt that you are the person that they're meant to be working with. And you would activate all of those people who you contracted to work with prior to coming into this lifetime. But because of the fear that it needs to look a certain way, or because you bought a program from a coach who said it has to be like this, or because, you know, you're terrified of your own unique offer, we tend to imitate rather than create.
Absolutely.
And that will never work. It's the law. The law is you're breaking the law of vibration, the law of correspondence. You're breaking all the laws. Yet if you could go into the unknown, and the thing is that we usually start off really well, and then we go into fear, so we'll try and imitate to try and feel safe. But if you could go into the unknown, you would meet God's unique purpose for your life, which may not be, and I want to clarify here, it may not be that you have something 100% unique that no one has ever said. It might be that you are meant to be a spiritual business coach, but you would do it with such energetic originality because you were absolutely in communion with the divine that everything would flow. So I would say, long answer to your question, but I would say that if things are faltering, you've stepped out of that divine grace with God, and you're gone into fear, and you're trying to do it how everybody else is doing it, or you are doubting when God talks. Most of the time when people say to me, I don't hear my intuition, that's bullshit. What they mean is I'm terrified of what I'm hearing, and I'm trying to get you to tell me that it's okay, that actually isn't my intuition, it's something else, it's my fear. Because people are actually looking for guarantees. They want everything to stay the same, they don't want anything to change, and they're terrified that if they truly surrender and say, use me, that God's going to say something they don't want to hear. And I guess I want to kind of say that will never happen, because God wants you to have more, not less. And the only thing you will have to give up is fear.
Yeah.
You know, my life is living, breathing proof of that. The Institute is only like 3 years old, and it's, you know, it's ridiculously successful. And I have no doubt why. Yes, I show up and I work my ass off, but I also am in a constant communion with my business partner, God. And I know if there's something that I want because I see it and I think, oh my God, that would be amazing, but it isn't right, I'll come back, I'll be brought back. And it's, you know, we're afraid of that. We're afraid of change, basically.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a long answer.
It is, but it's a good answer. And I think,
mentoring, intuitive readings, and it was very successful. And when I was called to step into the mentor-teacher role, which was really what excited me most, my zone of genius. I went, oh shit, but what if it doesn't work? I'm making good money now. Everything's good. Let's not upset the apple cart here, God. Like, everybody's happy. People want my services. I'm showing up. And even though I knew in here that I actually wasn't in my zone of genius, I felt that resistance, because what if I suddenly make less money? What if I suddenly am not safe anymore? And of course, that being me, that was like, well, fuck it, we're going there. We're going to that fear. And of course, the second that I made the Institute what it is, which it was always meant to be, I mean, I called it an institute. I knew what I was doing intuitively from the beginning was never going to just be one-on-one. That is when the exponential growth and the abundance and the, you know, we are now a global teaching institute happened, and it happened very quickly because I said, okay, I recognize the fear here, but I know I'm being called. And even though that will mean, yes, for a month or two there was a slight dip in income, the rebound was magnificent. So, you know, for me, money is the most brilliant evidence of when we're lining up with God. Because God does not want us to be poor. No, it's a very old fear story. And God doesn't want us to be poor because, well, I am God. I don't want me to be poor, because if I am being an expression of God's infinite abundance in the world, and if I am poor and sick and unhealthy, there's an incongruence there that doesn't make sense to me.
Absolutely.
So I think that evidence that money is a really, really powerful evidence of where energy is flowing and where it isn't. And that's just a really good way to look at it. Okay, if people are not buying your services, have you gone far enough, or are you just still in the imitation mode? Do you actually need to go back and go, well, actually what I really want to say is, you are God. And that was another up-leveling for me, was I teach intuition, I talk about intuition, and then it was like, okay, you're going to tell people that they're God. I'm like, I'm just going to do that incidentally, not as my main purpose, okay? And it's like, nope, you are going to teach people to know that they're God. I'm like, right. So I made myself do it. I went online on my Facebook group and on my page and live, like, by the way, everybody, we are now focusing on that truth. And intuition is a lovely side effect of remembering or knowing that you are God, because of course, you know, you've got the hotline.
That's right. Yes, absolutely.
But if I'd resisted that, I would have seen that immediately in my revenue.
That's right. That's
That's a good noise.
That's
I hope.
Good. That's good. I'm just yes. It's just, and this is where I think I just feel whenever I see you around, like you're not there all the time, like online, or you're not constantly squawking and pimping out your stuff. But I just feel like people gravitate towards you. And even I've spoken to people and they're going, oh, I don't know her, but I see her around, or they're going, oh, so everyone knows you, or they've heard of your name, or whatever that is. But yet you've got, like, the institute is doing incredibly well. So, and you kind of touched on it before, but for me, I just go, how does that work? Like, it's so beautifully effortless that it's really sexy. How does that happen?
That's a nice thing to hear, because of course, you know, when you're on the inside of it, it feels different.
Yeah.
If I don't do anything unless it feels absolutely congruent. So it absolutely has to feel like there's righteousness in my body around it. So I'm clairsentient, so I feel. So that's how I know when I'm on the right track. But, you know, I've never had a business coach. I've always had money mentors because I've known from the beginning that money is the best evidence of that I'm on the right track. So I've always had amazing women guide my money and say to me, hey, have you thought about this? Like people who can inspire and excite me and delight me to continue to grow. But in terms of what I do in my institute, it is 100% that communion with God and holding nothing back. So if that is where I'm supposed to go, then I go there. I don't ask and then ignore.
Yes.
You don't say no to God.
Yeah, that's right.
So we're talking here really about the 3 immutable laws. So if I was to tell you how have I done what I've done with the Institute in such a short amount of time, I would say that I abide by the laws. Yeah. And those laws are, they may or may not be known. And there's a lot of bullshit laws that people spout all over the place in the name of spirituality. But these 3 Hermetic laws were first written down in a text called the Kybalion. And that text was published at the beginning of the 20th century anonymously. The teachings had prior to that been handed down verbally from initiate to initiate. And they originated, so the legend goes, with the god Hermes, or Thoth as he was known. And that was these teachings were the cosmic laws of how the universe works. The first law, the law of mentalism, all is of the mind. So this law is really reminding us that we must engineer consciousness before we take action in 3D reality. And if I was going to say, what is my hot tip for how you should be building your business? It's like, you do the work here first. And consciousness engineering is a term from Vishen Lakhiani of Mind Valley, but it's that idea that everything is a thought in the mind of God. Everything originates at the level of the mind, and that's not the psychological idea of mind, but the one mind, the unified field, the divine matrix. And it all exists there. So if I want to be bringing something forth into 3D reality, which is just matter is 3D reality, 5D reality is energy, then I need to spend some time. And it's different to vision boards, which are usually a fear-based activity of what don't I have that I would really like to have. So if you're conjuring things from the field, or you're trying to create something out of pure energy into matter from a fear-based paradigm, you'll only attract the fear, you won't attract the thing. So you have to be willing ultimately to meet your fear again and again and again, every damn day. And that's everything I teach in my institute, is really how to meet and release fear. It's the basis of everything. Because if everything is created at the level of mind, as it is, if you are doing things out of a lack fear mentality, then you will be only able to create lack and fear. So if you are not equipped with the tools, and this is where most spiritual seeking goes awry, is that we either try to band-aid over our fear, or we spend all our time obsessing about our fear, and that's where we're all like, I'm in my shadow and it's really healthy to be in my shadow. It's only healthy to be in your shadow if you change the shadow into the light. Otherwise it's just self-obsession.
Exactly.
It's therapy. Like it's just a form of spiritual narcissism.
It's a distraction. Like it's a distraction, and this is something, because I hear about the shadow all the time, and people are going, you know, you have to go there, embrace it. I get the shadow, but I'm like you. It's actually not bringing you any further to your vision. It's not bringing you any further to you actually living this dream. All it's doing is giving you more shit to go in the spiritual Olympics every single day. You know, that you have to constantly compete for. And that's exhausting. Fear is just a friendly ally. It's showing you where you forgot your God. And so you take the message and then you transmute. And this is the third law, the law of vibration, is everything is vibration. So when we get beyond fear and love, when we get beyond the human emotions and start thinking in terms of vibration, which is what the law of vibration is about, is that the whole universe is but a vibration. Am I vibing at a frequency that is as close to God as I possibly can get, or am I down here? So if I don't meet my shadow, I'm in trouble, because I'm pretending that I'm not afraid, and that's bullshitting yourself and God, and you'll never get away with it. And if I stay in my shadow because I'm really impressed with how much self-awareness I have. And self-awareness is not divine revelation. Self-awareness is easy.
You know, and if I look to that as evidence as to why I'm where I'm at and therefore I do not have to move beyond it, we are also not being the alchemists that we are absolutely meant to be. Our job is to read vibration and then alter that vibration back to our true and only state, which is love. That is what God is. Or grace, to use another word. And the way that we do that is through the second law, the law of correspondence. As above, so below. As within, so without. You cannot be wearing your floral crowns and your white robes and going to Bali retreat and coming home and being in your terror.
Yes.
It's all trinkets and superstitions of the New Age, and it's the number one enemy of true faith, of true God consciousness.
Yeah.
You know, I prefer you throw away all of the external markers that you're a spiritual person and actually just go in to meet yourself. Like anything, like it's spiritual retail therapy. It's like, you know, buying stuff to try and accelerate something.
Yes.
Anyway,
Yeah.
you know, it's those three laws are how we need to be governing our lives if we want the success. The success is our birthright.
Yes.
And one of my favorite mantras is my success is inevitable. My success is inevitable because I'm with God.
Yeah.
Not because I'm special, not because I'm worthy, not because God hand selected me, but because I just simply decided to remember what I truly am.
Yes.
We are all equally God.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that like I teach in the hedonistic way, is that we are all gifted this at birth. Like if we are on this planet, like we have these gifts, you know, we already are all of those things, absolutely. And we just forget that, you know, along the way for whatever reason.
So we can wake up. That's why we're here. We drink from the river of forgetting. That's the purpose of Earth School, so that we may wake up to remember what we are. Otherwise we wouldn't come back here. We wouldn't need to.
Yes.
But while we come back to Earth School and go through that process, we forget with intention. And it's how long are you going to fight for the illusion? And how willing are you to just wake up?
Yes.
And that's what waking up means. You know, it's not actually a spiritual woo-woo wankery. It's actually like you're waking up to the truth that you never left God, that you never were less than what you are, and that nothing that has happened in your life can take that from you. And that's, you know, that requires giving up your victim. That requires giving up your shadow archetype.
That's right, exactly. And they're holding that. So when you said then that was intentional, like I think that is a huge key.
Yeah.
Right, is that we actually gave it up for a reason.
Yeah.
And the forgiveness that has to come with that. Is you go, oh, hang on a minute, you know, it wasn't their fault, it wasn't my fault, it wasn't, you know, it was just this, how long is it going to take me to wake up? Yeah.
And perhaps if we started looking at the people whose life situations seem the most difficult, the most traumatic, the most tragic, that they are simply more masterful and therefore could conjure that kind of life event in order to have a more accelerated awakening. But instead what happens is, of course, very often we just become more embedded in our story. But yeah, if we all shifted our paradigm to that truth, that we are here to train consciousness, so that we had to forget in order to remember.
Yes.
Because that's the training.
Yes.
That's how the training works.
Yeah.
It is a liberation. It's that nothing went wrong, everything is working on my behalf, and this is simply, you know, it's a play. Shakespeare said it. It's a play within a play, like in order to allow us to meet ourselves as God. And we put down our defenses then. We stop trying to defend our wounds.
Yes. And I guess that's where then the whole effortless thing comes into it, is because when we're in that creative intuition, is that what you called it? Is that it's work.
Yeah.
It's constantly, it's like, okay, what am I doing?
Co-creating today.
Yeah. And it's just, I actually wrote an email to my community today discussing this very thing, so it makes me laugh that we're talking about it now. It's so true, but it feels good, you know, when you're creating from this visionary place, and that place of just going, just use me, like it's just like you just use me, like you're just going, yeah, cool, let's do this automatically, like all defenses are down, and it feels so much better. So when you have this communication or conversation with yourself, what are some of the practices that you do? What do they say? Like, because this is so effortless, your entire business model, and everything just happens. So, does it say, like, just post in this Facebook group or do this email, or how does the whole thing work in terms of, like, actual action steps to get that traction and get clients and that revenue happening? What does that conversation look like to you when you're in that space?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm sort of going inwards to kind of tune into it, because of course you reach a state where you don't recognize any difference, so it's like, okay, let's break it down. What does that feel like, Ricky? So I share this example often because I think it really encapsulates what you're asking, or it answers what you're asking, which is when I was still in the one-on-one model of my business, I had the download of a year-long training to train people to do what I do. Because, the Institute's mission is to mainstream the intuitive sciences and to train women, because I only work with women, to the level of absolute gold standard, benchmarking excellence in intuition, that we can get better and better. So I knew that yearning was within me, and I got the download that was coming, but I could look at my schedule and my available time, and there was no room. I had no idea how that would happen, so I wrote it down. And I put it aside because I did not have the capacity. I didn't panic. I didn't try and create a shit version of it. I just knew that the download had come and it was preparing me. And that was probably like November, December of one year. In March of the following year, a client emailed me and she said, "Hey Ricky, can you teach me to do what you do?" And it was like, bang, instantly, like in one email, I got the whole curriculum. I got the whole content, and I was like, why, yes, I can. And it was there, and it begins in this date. And then like 3 months later, this course started, and I had my first group of priestesses that I was training. Effortless grace. Because the thing is, that can only work if you trust God. And by that, what we're really saying is trust the self. So I trusted divine timing. I didn't try and force something into being the second that I thought of it, because I knew I didn't have capacity.
Love that.
And I also knew that when the time was right, I would be shown. There is absolutely so much in that statement of I trust God. And whenever I go into fear, I remind myself. And I had a situation recently where I really went into lots of fear, and felt really awful, and I blah blah blah. And I was lying on I was having my Chinese medicine, having my acupuncture, and I was lying on the table. I was having the needles put in me, and I suddenly went, "Oh, I trust God. Oh, okay, what a relief. I can put all of that stress and fear down." And of course the situation resolved itself beautifully, but only once I reminded myself, or my subconscious reminded me, that I trust God. Okay, cool. This event is obviously working on my behalf. It can't be any other way. So I think that is the kind of precursor to being able to have a business that you feel. You have to trust yourself. You have to trust that you are the authority, and you're going to get the wisdom that you need, and that the steps will come to you in the right time. You also have to be unafraid to do the work. You have to show up. You have to show up. In the first year of my business, I made no money, but I was on fire. I was possessed. And I wrote a blog a day. Like I didn't have clients, I didn't have people to serve, but that didn't stop my service. And I just built it. And I kept hearing the words, build the mountain, not like climb someone else's mountain. It was like, build the fucking mountain. And I just did. And then it tipped over. And where it tipped over is where I came even more into congruence. So I'd started my business with my mum and my sister. And I was guided. I had just out of nowhere this amazing, like incredibly expensive business coach turned up to one of my courses with his daughter and just said, "I'm going to mentor you." And we did exchanges, so everything I needed came to me with ease and grace. And in the first year of my business, I didn't spend money. I bartered and I exchanged. I gave people my time in return for what I needed, because I didn't have any money. So I worked with what I had, and I never, this is an Elizabeth Gilbert idea, that I never put pressure on the Institute to perform financially before it was ready. Okay, so I kept my other job.
Yeah.
I had it. I sat down my husband. I said, okay, for a year, I'm going to reduce my hours in that work, and I'm going to give more time to this.
Yeah.
And after that year, if it's working, I'm going to make that leap. So I made really good decisions in 3D reality.
Yes.
You know, yes, I knew God was calling me and I was possessed, but I also knew that I could accept the miracle at the level that meant that, you know, I could keep feeding my family.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So this will often happen when we wake up. It's like it's everything. It's the baby with the bathwater, and then we end up 6 months later broke, unable to pay our mortgage, and wondering why God fucked up. Nothing happened except for the fact that we judge some things as being spiritual and other things as not being spiritual.
Yes.
But there's nothing that's not spiritual.
Right, that's right.
So for a time, if you need to, you keep working at the bank.
Yeah.
Or you keep being an academic, as I was. You know, you just have a bridge from where you are to where you're wanting to be, knowing that every step you are going to be guided, and at the right time you'll know when to leap. So what can happen is we can get adrenaline pumping around our body and think that that's intuition.
Yes.
It's not.
Yeah.
Intuition always comes with a calm certainty.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it might be scary as fuck, but it will still come with a certainty that is grounded.
Yes.
When we're in our heightened, oh my God, I'm going to spend $10,000 on that program because it just is the next step. I know it's the next step.
Yes.
You're actually just all up in your ego.
Yes.
You're up in your, like this addiction. In order for me to take action, it has to feel like adrenaline junkie stuff.
Yes.
And if I just waited 48 hours, I'd realize that was just me getting an addictive hit of my cortisol and my stress hormones. Yeah? So there's also a lot, we've gone a long way there, but I guess it is about recognizing that you are always guided, because how could you not be? And if you are rock and low self-worth, like most women are, you won't believe that.
Yeah.
So go meet your fear.
Very true. Very true. Can I ask in that, because you just touched on something that I am so passionate about, and for a long time it drove me crazy, and I was one of them, and I've done it before, so I'm not above this because I've absolutely done it, is you're a speaker and you sell from stage, and you know, speaking is great for lead generation and to convert into sales, and you upsell into a program. And for a long time and it was the whole scarcity model, right?
Yeah.
And you push them towards pain
Yeah.
in order to see the light, which is you.
Yeah.
That for me, it didn't last very long. I felt sleazy. Every single speaker that was... So how can you inspire an audience or someone who's in your workshop to make that grounded decision to, you know, buckle this journey together and not entice them through scarcity?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I'm sort of a missing because I've never been in it. Well,
It's horrible.
So well, what is my model? I guess that's what I need to do. So for my year-long program, which is my big product, the big financial investment, the way that I guess prevent people joining out of fear rather than love, because I don't think out of fear, is, and we'll talk about why that won't work long term. And if you went back to those people who are on stage and you go, how many are doing it now, because it's intolerant. So we'll talk about it in a minute. So my model is that it's, I call in, so I know people and those who are feeling to work with me, and I do that to my client attraction, and I can share with you, and it's just, I make myself energetically available, and I make it known, and I call in my assessments. And then, if someone says yes, I need to sit, we go and do an interview together, and I make an energetic assessment, and they make an assessment, they may not, and then only after that can go on to then register an interest, or you can expect get all the information. There's no way someone can go to a page, get 1 hour, in fact, it's just not, you have to come see with me, and we make that connection, and then you'll go to place, and then you get over, and you have another 48 hours to decide for and then that's all the information, you know what you're signing for, and then that's still a process where you then have to see financial exchange, because that is how we have our paradigm, make a valid work. And if you do stuff for free, you will never see like that investment you made, because you will not you yourself. So then that is next step, and then you have to sign and finish. There are lays out legs. People like bring journeys, you know, and in that process, some people will make. And in that process, people look 3 months, some will suddenly finish before they will close in, and they go, I am there, and I'm like, well, yes, already. You know, so it's absolutely creating a sense of we are making a shared choice here, and it is exclusive, and there is some scarce, but there are finite numbers of and that is all a love-based thing, because you have to be ready, because I can't take you where you're going, I can't work for you. So I hope that's answers for my very own personal way of doing things, and every that, you know, the process of like, oh, I don't know if I feel second, and like every step is designed to take you to me, is this yours enough? And by the time those women come through, by the time they come through into the team, their choice, they made a choice, and I couldn't do it any other way, you know? You know, and some people fall away because they feel love, rather than not being right, but that's also perfect, like, not doubting that, questioning that, and knowing that whoever there is who I am. So sometimes I had to learn to let the women go who I know should be there, and can't overcome it, because that would be me trying to be God, yes, to be in it. So, I mean, that's how I do it, and it works well, and I now run this program twice a year, so I can live here on the beginning of the year, and I don't have launch, have any sequence, I don't have the, I've got a call, and I make sure people know, I could also take action very early. There's no launch. Like, well, I like to kind of, like, when I look around and see how I people work, just introduce people into their stuff, and I'm like, I've never even attached, I've never even done a Facebook this program. Like, it is just you're already finding. And it's kind of busting probably, but it's also just great. Like I didn't know you different, and then I learned about forging that, so I was doing things like, yeah, that's so curious. And then I have another program that I do have for is actually my that's a 3-month program, that's just actually going in. So it's so funny how my 1 year going with massive doing that, like no problem, like women can really see themselves in that. And I can laugh, that's one easy sell. It's like, I don't know, but you know, like, my side just do it.
That's amazing. And that's what I love about it. Like, it's something you said before, and it's only a few words, but I'm stuck up for it, and it's so easy for me to fall into this trap of, you said that's me being God and not letting God work through me.
Yeah, and I'm trying to play God.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm under God's job.
Yes, and that is, you know, it's so easy, I think, for any coach, mentor, game changer, leader, whoever, like, because we genuinely want people to, we want to serve them, we want to, we want to help. There's no responsibility. And no, it's not like we can't constantly be the one eye, or the protector, or the peacemaker, or whatever it is.
Well, then just become the guru. The guru is, you know, the negative phase, the shadow guru is that you take people's power, rather than empower them to make themselves God. You know, I had to watch women I can see are precipices of absolute, like, life-changing bliss, make their uplift and walk away, and even though I can see it all happening, my job is not to say, hey, he's not here, you know, as I say, but my job is to hold the space for them to get stuff themselves. And whenever I hold the space, I'm not wrong, because of course I can't do that. My job is simply to invite them to that place and hold the space for us to do that. But I can't be the answer.
Yeah. Because I see a lot, and where it's, you know, there's people doing amazing things, and they just stop. And so there's an argument, so how do we get through that?
Well, yes. You really, it sounds so unsexy. Yeah. It's like practicing your feet, practicing your feet. You just, like, you are naked God. You are divine bliss, love. You are the universe. You are not lacking in way, except for where your ego is making you believe false strategies. Your ego is defined by the illusions of God. So, okay, now I sound like ego is defined by God. So I have to practice meeting my ego every single day, because when I do that, I'm outside that. I'm perfection. So I don't need to be intuitive. I help them get feet. That's all I do is help them get feet. And we do things where you have really crystals now, and I'm like, no, let's go feet, and then let's learn how to do it. So everything that the Institute does is move people consciousness towards the language of vibration. So it's the vibration of love high, light and fast, the vibration of fear is low and slow, and, you know, heavy. And your job is simply now to overcome all of the fear and goes away, wants to define what that low feeling is when you're thinking about it, and, you know, making evidence of why you can or can't do what you want to, and choosing a great state. And knowing that that is always your choice. That choice to cultivate a different vibration is your superpower. That's what your intelligence is. It's your spiritual superpower, to be greater than the others.
There's so much in that, so I'm just like, oh, right. Yeah, that is what I'm feeling. It's just, if I can just, like, say what I'm feeling, it's just absolute gratitude right now. And it's that society live as well, you know, is that it can be easy and it can be enjoyable, and there's so much that, I don't know, I feel really uncomfortable, speechless actually. What I want to ask you about is, so then you've got the client attraction. Oh, I did want to ask you, let's talk about, if you operate scarcity, and those people who are gurus, what would happen to them because you wanted to touch base and you asked them to want you?
So yes, we're coming out of
yes, right, that's right,
yes. Because it reminds me, I mean, if we are incongruent, so our actions in the world are not of love, eventually that will have to play out, because it's the law of correspondence sex as well. So if I know that I'm motivating through fear to participate in my offers, then that will have a consequence. Now, we are not gods, so we don't have to go how it's going to be. And it's not kind of saying, yes, that's us thinking, you know, we're to see. And maybe it's lifetime. And this is what I want to kind of say. You might look at these examples of huge abundance and success. If they're not people, successful, socially God's fatal, God's justice, and like, well, you are looking at one lifetime. You are looking at that as a soul journey. And you are basing assessments on external observation, which never, ever gives you an indication of what's happening in the interior reality. So you are not the one who has to eke out justice, because your version of justice has nothing to do with the karmic law. It's karmic. Truly, what karmic really is not the version idea that we got. That idea that there are these laws of correspondence, the law of vibration, you're holding low vibration, and claiming to be holding high vibration, and incongruence. We come too great a burden to bear, your soul will not carry it. And eventually everything will have to find its natural order. Just as the laws of the world are defined by arsenic, by die, because you know you can't, it's the same kind of, you know, these are not truth. I'm talking about truth. It's not like your personal version of truth. These are the laws as the cosmos is governed. And so whether it's that person in San Jose, you know, just lunch, you know, every time they talk, and that was a measure of success, where we actually looked into it and suddenly could feel what is truly going on in the hell that they live in because of their congruence. You know, when we're looking at a certain reality and as a measure of success, we're never seeing the full picture. So it will be that whether it's this lifetime or next, the laws will come to bear. They have to. Usually what happens for us on is there's like instant, like you want to do things, you want to do a take client meeting, you don't want to take a book, it's wrong, or they don't have to be live, like, you know, sues you, or, you know, we have little tiny examples, or we have giant examples. We recognize if we step out of that flow with the infinite one, that is what it feels like. You know, my definition of intuition, when it's in intuitive intelligence, which is what we're actually living, trusting it, is the question's answered before it's answered. You don't even ask the question, you just know something. If the step you've taken is right wrong because you feel congruence or incongruence. Yes. And don't doubt that. People often learn trust intuition, they know what trust intuition will mean. What's the outcome of intuition? I need to know what you mean before I will take action. And they have to step into the void. Yeah, that's so true. We can't, there's that way we go in co-creation. I do it, I'm really good, if you can't see, I'm going to have to launch.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. One of my keynotes I began with, I want to explore the truth between the actual truth and my truth. Yeah. And I feel like that space in between is just, you know, and I guess, you know, narrowing that and, you know, merging into, or let's say expanding into that, is such a beautiful thing. And I always think about, I always say it's about punishment. You know, it's never about punishment, it's just an opportunity for us to see that truth. Yeah. And to become congruent. Like you will be all back in balance because nature wants balance. Yes. You are out of balance. Yeah. You will be all back. Yeah, exactly, that's it. It all just seems so simple. Talking to you. I mean, it's always so, there's only one truth with capital T, and that is love. And that's, you know, what Course in Miracles is that only love is real. There's absolutely no truth other than that. If life is not a living, breathing expression of that, then you simply broken the law and you need to come back. And that's, you know, so simple that we reject it. Yeah. You know, it's so we're actually afraid of the simplicity of how to be God. And we don't want to put down our fight for justice, you know, all the desperation and wanting things to go according to our version of success. And on the other side, that is everything we see. That's such a beautiful word. And that's, it all comes in with truth. Is always saying, on the other side is trust. And just, again, stepping into that is what we need to do. Oh, gosh, thank you so much. I feel calm. I feel like it was a nice reminder for me as well. And it can be simple, you know. So if people want to explore this further, I mean, I'll put all Ricci-Jane's details. Details are like, so should we say the beginning of this, because it's just, you spoke about a lot, and, you know, love and fear and truth and just the beginning of, to explore all of that. what would you suggest? You mentioned the client attraction meditation. Would that be a good place for people to start? Or
yeah, if you're on the spiritual journey and you want to do that, I mean, the place starts to begin assessing all of your choices with, is it fear, is it love? And the more you do that, the more quickly you're going to recognize when you're trying to make something happen because you're afraid. Not because you want to, because you're afraid you're having bills. And when you shift, that's just simple reminder. If you start thinking in those terms, you will notice your actions are congruent. And yes, if you're going to grow a business, begin vibrationally, not Facebook, and use the client attraction meditation. And my book, Spiritual Fear, which is like not extensive, and I think it's a way of life. That's just all the tools that I use. So I just collected tools over my lifetime. I put them all in this book, some of mine and some of other people's stuff. They're all just ways that we can meet fear. Because you don't have to become anything. You are it. What you have to do is wake up from dream. The illusion that says you're not ready, you're not right, I don't know how to do this, I better people knew, I'm not doing very well. That is just habit, that's addiction. We need to have tools to combat fear. And that's it. When you feel who you are. You don't have to feel happy God. No, just have to be fear.
Yeah, absolutely. And we spend so long, trying to make it, trying to get through the gap, trying to make it, actually making it. But that's what it is, right? It's just about recognising that we are God. And that, anything, when we think about living the dream, it's waking up, it's a thing, I already am. I love that. And it's empowering, it gives us power now. We don't have to do anything else, but we just need to go in. Yeah, beautiful. Oh, I'm going to put all of Dick's things. And yeah, I urge you all to connect with it. Because if you feel anything like I feel right now, I automatically feel this peace and calm and this simplicity that is really, really beautiful. So I'll invite you all to, that this can be the beginning of your journey with Ricci-Jane. Thanks, guys.